musical accompaniment. Thank you all so much for tuning in today on Zoom. It's wonderful to see everyone, and we are glad we can keep in touch and support our community virtually. Please be aware we are recording this service and it will be posted on our YouTube page, except during joys and concerns when we will pause recording for privacy. We seek inspiration and meaning from a great many faith traditions and philosophies. We support each other's lifelong spiritual journey, and we encourage work for justice and peace. We value open minds and loving hearts. Here, may our minds stretch, our hearts open, and our spirits deepen. Please take a moment to think of all of your friends at MVUUC and greet them with a comment in the chat box. Let us support one another. Visitors, as we are a diverse group with varying interests and beliefs, our services are varied in tone, topic, and format. We encourage you to attend or view several services to gain a good understanding of our congregation. If you'd like to receive our weekly email newsletter, please email us at news@mvuuc.org. MVUUC remains committed to supporting our members and friends. If you or anyone you need is in need of assistance, please email SAC, that's Social Action Committee, at mvuuc.org with your name and what kind of assistance is requested. Now is the time for announcements. You can add your announcement to the chat box and the Zoom host will make the announcement. If you have an important announcement today, you can click to raise your hand in Zoom too. I can go ahead and read the announcements in the chat. So from the Social Action Committee, the anti-racist reading group was postponed this past week. So there will be a meeting this Thursday, February 10th, and next Thursday, February 17th at 7 p.m. via Zoom. And you can email Megan at sac@mvuc.org to join them. And they are also doing a virtual collection drive to benefit the Cherry Street Mission. And Megan has a link in the chat that you can click on to see a button for donating and ordering from their Amazon wish list. So that's for the Cherry Street Mission. And then Winnie, do you want to go ahead with yours?
Okay, thank you. Hi, I'm Winnie Rex. I'm the chair of the Finance Committee. Much of the work that's done at MVUC is done by volunteers. For example, the Sunday services that you're seeing are all planned by the Sunday Services Committee, and all the wonderful people who do the presentations and so on, handle the technical details. But we do have to pay for things like the light bills, pay to maintain the building, etc. So every year about this time, the Finance Committee, we get together to come up with a budget for the next year. So we need to try and figure out how much in the coming year we need to keep the lights on, the heat on, anything we want to do to improve the building, various things that we do as services for our members, whether it's sending a card or flowers when someone's sick, or keeping the garden going, things like that. So in order to continue all those services, we need your help. I've emailed the chairs of all the committees that we have to ask them how much money they will need in the coming year for any activities they have planned, supplies they might need, equipment that they might need to buy, anything like that. So I'm just asking if all of the people who receive those emails, as well as any members of those committees, if you could please submit your requests by next Sunday, we would appreciate it. And then we can finalize the budget for next year. And that eventually, of course, will go to the entire congregation to vote on in May. But we're starting that process now. It takes a couple months to get everything in line to reach that point. So again, if you receive one of those emails, if you would please send me your budget requests, we will take care of those. Thank you very much.
Okay, and Rich Dittis shares that the furnace and heat pump installation will begin this week. So that is a very exciting update on that. And then Megan has an announcement. If you saw our service last week about Afrofuturism, the opera adaptation of Octavia Butler's The Parable of the Sower will be performed in Ann Arbor on March 25th, 26th, and 27th. And she has a link that you can get to in the chat for finding information about that. So that's very cool. Nice follow-up to last week. John, were there any announcements that came in through email?
So far, no. Let me see in the last 5 minutes if we got any new ones. Nope, just that Winnie had an announcement, so taken care of. Thank you.
Okay. Well, please join me then in reading these words by Lois Van Leer for the lighting of the chalice. They will appear as a comment in the chat box. We light this chalice on the brink of a new year, letting go of what has been, open and hopeful for what may come, renewed, restored, ready to live life fully anew. May we move forward with intention. And now we will have a musical interlude from Ted again. Is that right, John? Beautiful. That was hymn number 53, I Walk the Unfrequented Road. And thank you to Ted for providing those videos for us. The following reading on Lunar New Year comes from Columbia University. In China and ethnic communities around the world, the Lunar New Year is the most important and most festive holiday of the year. Through centuries of China's agrarian tradition, this was the one period where farmers could rest from their work in the fields. Family members from near and far would travel to be with loved ones in time to usher out the old year and welcome in the new with great celebratory flourish. With a calendar dating from the 3rd millennium BCE, the Chinese people have for thousands of years been building on ancient customs of New Year celebrations. Although they may vary from region to region, village to village, and even family to family according to social position, many of these customs are still observed. Today, all over China, during what is now commonly referred to as the Spring Festival, passenger trains, buses, and river boats are packed with holiday travelers. Shops do a flurry of business selling gifts, new clothes, and festive foods. Kitchens are bustling with preparations for elaborate feasts, and streets are filled with the sounds of firecrackers and seasonal greetings. The marking of the passage of time in China has for millennia been closely linked to the cyclical pattern of agricultural production. The vast majority of the population of this agrarian society has always resided in rural areas and supported itself directly or indirectly by the tilling of the soil. One's activities were arranged around events necessary to sustain life: plowing the fields, sowing seed, nurturing the crops, and gathering the harvest. As such, it was necessary to be able to keep track of the optimal times for performing certain tasks. If a peasant waited too long to plant a crop, he might miss advantageous spring rains. If he hesitated to reap his more delicate vegetables, he might lose them to the first frost. It was from this necessity that the Chinese lunar calendar was born. And it is this calendar which fixes the date of the Lunar New Year and other events related to the holiday season. Known as both the agricultural calendar and the old calendar, the lunar calendar is also referred to as the Shia calendar because legend holds that it dates from the time of the Shia dynasty from the 21st to 16th centuries BCE. No sophisticated astronomical instruments were necessary to observe the regular waxing and waning of the moon. So it is the Earth's satellite itself that is considered to be the earliest instrument of celestial observation. Peasants could measure time by simply recording the revolutions and phases of the moon. While useful for counting time periods, it wasn't much help in accurately predicting seasonal changes. The ancients knew that there were roughly 29.5 days between new moons, and that therefore 12 revolutions of the moon required 354 days. While this was relatively close to the time required for the Earth to make one turn around the sun, 365.25 days, and thus for the seasons to complete one full cycle, it was a great enough difference to render the lunar calendar impractical for foretelling seasonal changes. The same date on the calendar of 12 lunar months would fall at a different seasonal time each year. To account for the extra half day in each lunar revolution, the calendar makers assigned 29 days to half the months and 30 to the other. To reconcile the differences in lunar measurement with the solar year of 4 full seasons, one intercalary or extra month was added every 2 to 3 years. The result was a lunar solar calendar, in that each 19-year period has 12 years with 12 months and 7 with 13 months. Oracle bone inscriptions in the Shang dynasty from 1600 to 1050 BCE offer evidence that the intercalary month had already been adopted by that time. By the Qin dynasty, 221 to 206 BCE, the calendar had been further divided into 24 periods of 15 days each. These are referred to as solar and mid-solar terms, and each is named in accordance with corresponding seasonal changes. The beginning date of each solar and mid-solar term is determined by the position of the sun in one of the 12 signs of the zodiac, which in Chinese are represented by animals. In 104 BCE, Emperor Wu of the Han Dynasty, from 206 BCE to 220 CE, approved a calendar reform that fixed the beginning of the year on the day of the first new moon after the sun enters the 11th sign of the solar zodiac, or the second new moon after the winter solstice. This is also the first day of the solar term known as beginning of spring. For centuries, the festival observing the first day of the year was popularly called Lunar New Year's Day, or literally first morning of the year, beginning of the first month, or first day. When the Republic of China was founded in 1912, the government officially adopted the Gregorian calendar as the public calendar and recognized January 1st as the first day of the new year. Since that time, Lunar New Year's Day has been commonly known as Spring Festival. The old lunar calendar continues to be used popularly in conjunction with the solar-oriented Gregorian calendar as a way of marking traditional observances, the dates of which, like Spring Festival, are dependent on its calculations and which are closely associated with its agrarian origins. Preparations for New Year's festivities begin well in advance of the actual date of the holiday. As the old year draws to a close, there is a tendency to want to tie up loose ends, to put things in order in anticipation of beginning the new year with a fresh start and a clean slate.
Okay, so I just put a link in the chat to a little chart that show, just in case not everybody knows their whatever year that they were born in the Chinese zodiac. So if you want to go in the chat, click on that link. There's a little chart based on your birth years, just in case not everybody knows what their Chinese zodiac sign is. This past Tuesday, February 1st, was the first day of the year of the tiger. Tigers inhabit a wild field. The tiger is active, full of valor and vigor in nature. The people born in the year of the tiger also have these kinds of personalities. They usually act actively, but with caution. Once they speak out, they will never regret. Also, they never give up halfway until they reach the goal. Although loyal to friends, sometimes they are thought to be not sophisticated enough, as they like to stubbornly and arbitrarily cling to their own courses. They would not blame fate and other people, but try to overcome their own obstacles in their career. The year of the rat, which was 2020, was about survival. And the year of the ox, which was this past year, 2021, was about anchoring ourselves in a new reality. The year of the tiger will be about making big changes. This will be a year of risk-taking and adventure. We're finding enthusiasm again, both for ourselves and for others. Everyone is fired up, generosity is at an all-time high, and social progress feels possible again. The tiger is associated with yang energy. The contrast of yin energy, yang is usually associated with being kind of more fast, solid, focused, heat, dry, and active. And it's usually associated with more fire energy, sky and air, the sun, positivity, glowing in light, creativeness, and daytime. Tigers do things their own way and hate being told what to do. Expect things to rapidly change this year. Sudden disruptions in career, romance, and a home life should be expected. Some of us will thrive through making great leaps, while others might crash and burn. So while it's important to follow our intuition and run with our wildest dreams, that means we also have to keep our egos in check. In addition to the animals, the Chinese zodiac also cycles through 5 elemental types. So this is not only the year of the tiger, it's also the year of the water tiger. In Chinese Taoist thought, water is representative of intelligence and wisdom, flexibility, softness, and pliancy. The negative emotions associated with water are fear or anxiety, while the positive emotion is calmness. Water years bring out our emotions more than any other of the elemental years. Water tigers are family-oriented and have wonderful interpersonal relationships. Though they're extremely driven and can be a bit brash, their goal is always to do what's best for them, not just for themselves, for everyone, not just themselves. Overall, this is a year for switching careers, building teams, or getting back into creative projects. Life is short, so why not So why not be happy? In China and other places in East Asia, the Lunar New Year is a time for balancing the books, paying off old debts, and collecting on loans and charges still due. For those who cannot afford to settle accounts at this time, the pre-holiday season may be spent evading creditors. In old China, it was not uncommon for the pursuit of a debtor to last right up to New Year's Eve, when the bill collector search might be aided by a lantern as the midnight hour approached. Although it was considered vulgar to hound a debtor on New Year's Day, the convention was circumscribed by another which allowed the creditor to pretend it was still the preceding evening by continuing to carry a lighted lantern on his chase. The safest refuge for one unable to pay a debt were to remain well hidden in one's home or to seek asylum in a temple, often that of the city god, where propriety simply did not permit financial transactions. For the individual, the close of the old year means a look back at the misfortunes of the past and an introspective examination of one's mistakes and failures. In some parts of China, people use this time just prior to the new year to seek out old friends or associates whom they may not have seen for a while, to renew friendships and talk about any problems that might be standing in the way of an amicable relationship in the future. A spiritual cleansing of the old, a good riddance to the bad luck and negative attitudes of the past, leaves one with a bright and optimistic approach to whatever lies ahead. Domestically, there is a traditional cleansing as well. In decades past, the most thorough spring cleaning of the year was initiated as a ritualistic sweeping away of all of the evil spirits feared to be lurking in dark corners behind heavy and rarely moved pieces of furniture. Today, the only consideration for the vast majority of Chinese is a spotless presentation of one's home to the many family members and guests who will be welcomed during the holiday season. Windows are washed or were repapered in the old days, and the courtyard gate or other wooden parts of the house might be repainted. The old agrarian calendar cites the 20th day of the 12th lunar month as the day for sweeping floors, and this date still marks the beginning of the major pre-holiday house cleaning projects in Hong Kong. In much of China, peasants waited until the 23rd in southern China or the 24th in the north to pick up the broom and dustpan. It was on this day that the kitchen god, or god of the hearth, was scheduled to depart to make his report concerning household activities to the Jade Emperor in heaven. So, as not to unnecessarily disturb and possibly offend him, people waited until he was on his way before they started moving furniture and raising dust. Sending the kitchen god off to heaven was a matter deserving special attention. In residences year-round at the hearth, where he was represented by a prominently displayed picture, or in parts of the South by beautifully calligraphed characters of his name, the kitchen god observed all the family's comings and goings. Had they been generous to any beggar at the door? Had they wasted any hard-earned food, which some farmer had toiled and sweated to produce? Measures were taken to ensure the kitchen god's cooperation in giving a glowing report to the Jade Emperor, and thereby winning for the family a little heavenly favor. This included ritual offerings of candies or pastries and wine, and even smearing his lips with honey to make certain that he would only have sweet things to say about the family. Once this was done, the picture of the kitchen god was torched, and he was off on his yearly journey, not to return until New Year's Day. The dusting, washing, and scrubbing could then begin. Many believe they should sweep with inward strokes towards the center of the room so as not to whisk any of the family's good fortune out the door. Shopping, of course, is another, sorry, I lost my place. Okay. Shopping, of course, is another major activity of the holiday season. Historically, New Year's Day was practically the only day of the year when China's hardworking peasants allowed themselves to rest. Since it was everybody's day off, all purchases had to be made before shops and street vendors closed their tills on New Year's Eve. The exchange of gifts is common practice throughout China. The value of presents depends, of course, on the wealth of the purchaser, and certainly in times past, on the relative social status of giver and receiver. Very often, as is the case today, gift items were relatively expensive or specially prepared foods. Flowers to brighten the house are a popular item in the markets at this time of year. So-called New Year prints were another item which for centuries were associated with the New Year festival in much of China. These colorful woodblock prints included portraits of the kitchen god to replace the one ritually burned, and favorite scenes from old stories and legends. Auspicious ripe fruit and healthy smiling babies were often featured, and likenesses of door gods affixed to the front gate to guard against evil spirits or ghosts were another traditional favorite. Also sold in large quantities for those who couldn't write their own were couplets and single auspicious characters handwritten on bright red paper. The couplets, half of each written on vertical paper banners, would be pasted on either side of the front gate of a house, often with a complementary horizontal banner placed over the door. Classically poetic in composition, the couplets would express wishes for good fortune, long life, many friends, and the like. Traditionally, on the last night of the year, the male head of household led the family in making offerings to various gods of the household and to the ancestors. The ceremonies would begin by sealing the cracks around the door with red paper to prevent the last vestiges of the old year's bad luck from stealing into the house and any of the family's good luck from escaping. Respects would be paid to the god of wealth, the gods of the well, the bed, the hearth, or any others with whom the family wanted to remain on especially good terms. The attention would then turn to the ancestors, to whom sacrifices of food would be given along with burning of incense. Each member of the family would kneel in respect before the ancestral tablets, symbols of many past generations, all the spirits of whom some families believed were in attendance that night. In wealthier households, an entire room might be devoted to use as an ancestral hall, complete with altar, while in poorer families, the ancestral tablet might occupy a modest shed in a corner. Younger family members would give kowtow to members of each generation above them, in order, beginning with the eldest. When children showed respect in this way, they were rewarded with red envelopes which contained New Year's money. With the rites of ancestor worship complete, the family would sit down to perhaps their biggest meal of the year. Often a place was set for those members who could not return home. In a tradition still observed today, the dishes served on this evening are chosen for the significance of their names or appearances. One very common course is a whole fish, which the term of which is homophonous with the word meaning surplus or abundance, and is therefore considered auspicious. There were other many foods that also had like homophonous meanings. So there was a kind of sea vegetable, which was similar to the word for being wealthy, and oysters, which also sounded like good business. The Cantonese pronunciation for shrimp, which is ha, was, sounds like happy laughter and is therefore often found at New Year's feasts. Clams are sometimes served because they are opened as they cook, signifying the opening of new horizons. And likewise, especially in Shanghai, egg skin dumplings resembled gold ingots and cellophane noodles look like silver chains. Soybean sprouts are similar in appearance to a traditional scepter-like art object, which also means to your heart's content. For Northerners, one custom still widely observed is the consumption of meat-filled dumplings at midnight. The name of the dumplings also sound like a term that means the meeting of the last hour of the old year with the first hour of the new year. Sweets, nuts, and pastries that most could not usually afford in abundance might be readily available at this time of year. On New Year's Day and for the next several days, people still follow the custom of exchanging visits, with close relatives first, then with distant relatives and friends. Traditionally, the order of these visits also began with the eldest, and the first day was usually devoted to paternal family relatives. One old superstition was that women shouldn't go out on the first day because the household luck might go out with them. During these New Year's visits, children and the unmarried younger generation would again receive red envelopes. Some Cantonese individuals once believed it was risky to visit friends on the second day because they feared that the slightest disagreement might portend a year full of arguments. Gifts are taken to friends and relatives alike, as are red envelopes for both children and servants of the households that were visited. In the days after a new year, it is common to make pilgrimages to temples, especially nowadays for residents of Hong Kong. Theater groups and acrobatic troupes perform in the streets at the marketplaces, on temple grounds, or at large public stadiums. Dragon dances, lion dances, stilt walking performances, and folk pageantry are still particularly popular in China. Many parents take their children on outings to the park, to the zoo, or to the movies. A major holiday for students, workers, and businesses, New Year's brings virtual suspension of routine activity. Many shops, factories, and offices remain closed for the first few days of the year. In the Canton area, it was once considered especially unprofitable for a shoe store or shoe repair stall to reopen before the entire holiday was passed. The Cantonese word for shoe sounds like a common expression of grief, and to some signifies a bad omen. So no one wanted anything to do with shoes at such a happy time. Even Hong Kong Harbor is uncharacteristically quiet at New Year's. Many fishing and other commercial boats are anchored on New Year's Eve and sit idle until the first auspicious day of the year for sailing. Traditionally, a Chinese person counts their age by starting on the day of birth with 1. For every new year observed after that, another year is added. Individuals still celebrate their own natal anniversaries, but do not count themselves 1 year older until they pass another new year. For many Cantonese individuals, the 7th day of the first month is Human's Day, a day that is observed as everybody's additional birthday. While both Human Day and the Lunar New Year may have already passed this year, Melbourne-based Feng Shui expert Edgar Lock-Tin Jung predicted earlier this year that some of the luckiest signs for this year might include tigers who work in the media, education, publication, and training sectors, and those born in 1998. Monkeys will experience a lot of change in 2022 with plenty of travel opportunities. Those born in the year of the rabbit are the biggest lucky stars on the zodiac sign in 2022. Snakes born in 1965 and 1989 will experience good wealth. Self-employed people born in the year of the pig, particularly those born in 1983 and 1995. People born in the year of the rat in 1948 and 2008 will experience good wealth. Dragons born in 2000 will experience excellent wealth. Goats and tigers have a special bonding relationship in 2022. Horses will benefit from the general star and improving wealth. And those born in the year of the rooster will gain recognition or fame later this year, especially those in culinary sectors. But hopefully the year of the tiger will be lucky for all of us.
Thank you, Robin. I learned a lot from that. And even though oxen weren't mentioned, I hope we have a good year too. Like you said, I hope it's lucky for everyone. Okay. So now to reflect on today's presentation. As Unitarians, we share beliefs about how we are meant to exist with others on this planet. We affirm and include beliefs and practices from a variety of cultural and ethnic backgrounds, national origins, and faith traditions. We believe in living with love and compassion for others. To me, this cannot be a passive act. If we are truly going to love our neighbors and live with outward compassion for others, to me, we need to understand the roots of one another's beliefs and customs. Fortunately, many of us are naturally curious, so it comes readily to us to search for wisdom from our living tradition's third source. So the third of our 6 sources is wisdom from the world's religions, which inspires us in our ethical and spiritual life. So I hope that in addition to enjoying and learning from Robin's presentation, you will also leave today feeling inspired, perhaps to reach out to an old friend, to appreciate the beauty of an upcoming spring day, or to view cleaning your kitchen, not as a chore, but as a way of respecting your good fortune in life, or reflecting on how you can be grateful for the labor that goes into the food that sits in your kitchen. This morning's lessons connect not only to the sources of our living tradition, but also to our UU principles. Our latest adopted principle, Principle 8, seeks to dismantle racism. One step I believe that we can take in this direction is to learn where our own practices and traditions that are rooted in our European ancestry might differ from traditions that take place globally throughout the year. The 8th principle teaches us that we need to decenter whiteness and other dominant cultures in UUism. So many of us listening this morning don't come from religious backgrounds with earth-centered traditions. Yet by learning about a tradition focused on cycles, lunar, solar, life cycles, we can benefit in our own personal lives by living in better harmony with the rhythms of nature. But beyond those benefits to each of us as individuals, taking a Sunday morning to learn about a celebration originating in China and celebrated in many parts of Asia is, to me, an example of setting dominant topics and practices to the side to focus on a day celebrated by Asian Americans who are often marginalized in our society through white dominance and supremacy. By moving outside of familiar sermon topics, I hope we can continue to disrupt white supremacy culture within our communities. So let's move forward together in this journey, taking steps of understanding and growth by one another's side, doing what work we can to make the world a more loving and compassionate place. Thank you. Now is the time for our offertory. Visitors, we welcome you to donate via our PayPal link, and please know that what predominantly supports MVUUC are annual pledges by our members and friends. We encourage anyone who believes in our mission to consider becoming a member and to pledge support. Please email news@mvuuc.org if you're interested in learning about the benefits of being a member and how to pledge. We will send you a pledge packet and our membership committee will contact you.
All right, now is the time for the sharing of joys, concerns, and milestones. John, please pause recording at this time. Still in our hearts. John, go ahead and begin recording again, and we'll have another little musical interlude.
Actually, Robin, that's the song that we played during the
Oh, okay, that's cool.
donations. Sorry about that.
So no, it's cool. I'll just move into our closing words. So our closing words today are a translated poem from Tang Dynasty era poet Kui Tu. The road to Ba is a long, long way. Still I make the perilous journey of 10,000 li. In the melting snow beneath jagged mountains at night, a stranger in a strange land. Alone, gradually growing distant from family and friends, and closer instead to my companions. How does one bear moving from place to place? What will the new year bring?
Please join me in reading the words for extinguishing our chalice, which can be found in the Zoom chat box. Having let go, set our intentions, named our curiosity, committed our energies, and given ourselves over to lives of balance, purpose, and meaning. Let us begin again in love. After the closing song, we invite everyone to stay for a virtual coffee hour. You can turn your cameras on at this time.
We're losing people quickly. Hi, Winnie.
Hi there, Charlie. Glad you got your driveway plowed there. You have a benefactor.
Factor, I don't know who. And the gentleman who came down, to drive, he was very nice about it.
Yeah.
So I saved his phone number in case I need him again, but next
Yeah.
time I wait a while to make sure the